It's time for this week's episode of Brandon Sports Talk, featuring in-depth interviews from those who are trending in the world of athletics. And now, here's the host of Brandon Sports Talk, Brandon Pate.
Welcome back to Brandon Sports Talk. In today's episode, I have the privilege to interview the Oklahoma State assistant women's soccer coach, Coach Karen Hancock. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thanks, Brandon.
Can you talk about how you knew that you wanted to get started in coaching in college women's soccer?
Yeah, I was a player in college, and I was in my last semester of finishing up with a degree in speech pathology. And my coach at the time, his name was Randy Waldron. He's still currently in college coaching, and he's at the University of Pittsburgh. But we were traveling home from an away game one night, sitting in the front seat of a van, which is how we traveled at the time. He was driving, I was in the passenger seat. And I told him I was graduating in a couple of months, and I really wasn't enjoying what I was doing, because I just started doing practicums. And I just realized that for me, I loved the coursework in speech pathology. But once I got down to the nitty gritty of what I would be doing day in, day out with that job, I was like, I just don't think I would be very happy doing that. And he said, well, don't do it. And I said, well, what do you mean don't do it? I'm graduating in 2 months. And he said, you don't have to do that. And I said, yeah, but I'm graduating with that degree in 2 months. And I thought in my young mind that meant I was locked into that for life. And he said, no, you can always change your mind and go do something else. And then we started talking about soccer. He goes, have you ever thought about coaching? Because I'd been doing camps for years. And he said, I think you'd be good at it. And I said, okay, really? And so long story short, I graduated with my degree in speech pathology in December, and then started a coaching gig the next spring, and have never used that degree in speech pathology. But that's how I finally got my mind around that I might actually do this.
Of course, what was it like playing for Tulsa?
A lot of fun. I felt so blessed and privileged to be able to continue playing at the collegiate level back in the late 80s, because especially in the area of the country that I was in, because there were so few Division I women's soccer programs at that time. And actually Tulsa started up the program the first year that I went there. And I just felt incredibly fortunate that I was getting the opportunity to still play the sport I love to play. And had a great 4 years at the University of Tulsa.
Of course, how was that like being the inaugural season and playing in the first team for Tulsa?
Well, they had a men's program, and I had a men's program there for years. And so we actually got the hand-me-downs from a lot of the men's stuff. Our very first year, we were wearing the men's old jerseys and old shorts and old socks even. So that was, something that would never fly today. But, we were just so thrilled to be a team and be a varsity sport at the university that we were going to wear whatever they asked us to wear to get out on the field and play. And at least it said Tulsa across the chest. So we were pretty excited about that.
What were some of your accomplishments during your playing time at Tulsa?
I wasn't much of a goal scorer, so I don't have stats like that. I have a few goals, mostly, well, they're all from penalty kicks. I played in the back. So, any accomplishments I had was just, team recognition. We didn't even play in a conference at that time. So there wasn't the opportunity to be named all conference. We just were independent out there, as a lot of schools were back then. But, I got individual awards on the team as, for best defensive player a couple of years, and most inspirational player and things like that, so it was nice to be recognized internally by my peers. And, I got some praise from the coaches here and there, newsletters and that kind of thing. But that was probably about the extent of my achievements there.
Of course, coming out of college, what was it like getting into coaching and coaching on the high school level with Bishop High School?
So Bishop Kelly High School in Tulsa, at the time, they were just looking for anyone that had some kind of soccer knowledge. I think all of their faculty at the time, no one really had soccer background. So they hired me as a lay coach. And I was not the first person to do that. They had been hiring a series of lay coaches from the outside who knew a little bit about the sport and could coach. And so I came in there as a very young person and, straight out of college, and coached that high school team that spring semester and really, really enjoyed that experience. Had a lot of fun. Obviously, I was pretty close in age. I didn't think about it at the time. I felt so much older than those players that were 18. I was all of 22 or 23 at the time. Actually, I was 22. So I felt much older than them, but I really wasn't. And just had a lot of fun trying to teach them parts of the game that I knew. And, we had a nice season. And that was that.
Of course, going to Little Rock, Arkansas, what was that like becoming the assistant coach there?
So I went from that Bishop Kelly High School gig to going to Little Rock to do my master's degree and work with both the men's and the women's programs over there. And I was working with the head coach over there who was head of both programs. He had been my assistant at Tulsa for the first couple of years I was there. And so we knew each other. And so I went and worked for him. His name was Roy Stanley. And again, learned a ton of things because largely because there was just the two of us on staff, he took the men and I took the women. So we would go on road trips and it would just be me. I didn't have another coach with me. I didn't have a trainer with me. I didn't have anybody with me. It was me and about 18 players. And again, I felt so old at age 23, 24, but in reality, I was coaching players who were a year younger than me. And I learned so much. That's what that experience was about, was just nonstop learning curve, like straight through the roof.
Of course, how is that like, obviously taking that program and just being the women's coach?
Challenging. There were so many difficulties throughout that process. I was in graduate school, so I was working on my master's. So I was a full-time graduate student, and I'm largely the individual running the women's soccer program. We weren't very good. We didn't win, but maybe 4 or 5 games a year, it felt like. But again, we suited up and played every game as hard as we could and did the best we could. And again, lots of learning experiences, lots of lumps along the way, but still have very fond memories of time spent there. Met my husband there. So personally, I have fantastic memories of that. And just had a great time there.
Of course, how is it like getting your first head coaching job at South Alabama?
So at South Alabama, I was hired there for it was a startup program for the women. So I think I was viewed as someone who just helped start things up because I was a part of a first-year program at Tulsa as a player. And then Little Rock was not a first-year program at all, but the year I went there, they were making the jump from competing in NAIA to competing at Division I. So that felt kind of new in many ways for that too. And then down at South Alabama, it was truly a brand new program. Went there with basically director of coaching. Men had a program there for a while. They don't anymore, but they did at that time. They had a longstanding program, had done well. Roy Patton oversaw the men. He was kind of the umbrella over the women as well, and wanted to hire somebody that I think they knew a little bit about. And Little Rock was in the conference of South Alabama. And so we had that connection and I got hired there. And, we went there, and I say Colin was already there. The guy I work with here at Oklahoma State, Colin Carmichael, he was already there. He'd been a player. He was also helping with the women. And we really, again, kind of like Little Rock, Roy took the men, Colin and I really, all we did was the women. And we had tremendous success the first 2 years of that program. I mean, we were regionally ranked in the top 10. We were beating, the bigger schools of Auburn and Alabama in state, and just, very competitive. And again, it was just another step in the learning process of college coaching for me, and really, really enjoyed the time spent there, the people I worked with there. Mobile, Alabama was nice to live along the coast like that, and very warm weather, warm year-round weather, and so many great things about it I loved.
Of course, how is that like becoming the first head coach and becoming a first head coach in your coaching career?
So down there, you just start to learn more and more about what needs to be done and how to manage a team, manage players. And again, I was still very young at that stage, mid-20s. And, I think when you're young, you're naive in many ways, and your ambition sometimes gets the best of you, and your confidence. And, you just think, well, this is easy. I'm just going to go out there and kill it. I'm just going to go be the best coach in the country, and we're going to win national championships and things like that. But obviously that's not reality, right? It's extremely competitive. There are so many people, and there are so many good coaches out there. And, it's as competitive as an environment as you'll get in college athletics, just to be a college coach. But you learn that sometimes it's more about more than wins and losses, and you forge relationships with players. And I still, to this day, I still have contact with some of those players from Little Rock and South Alabama. And those women are now in their mid 40s, late 40s. And that's pretty amazing.
How's that like, obviously leaving South Alabama to come to Oklahoma State?
Well, South Alabama, it was a great time down there, but I'm a Oklahoman by birth. And for me, it was opportunity to come back closer to home. So that was the first thing that was very interesting to me. My family, my parents went to Oklahoma State University, and for me, it was kind of like a coming home because of that. Oklahoma State did not have a women's soccer program when I came out of high school, so that it wasn't even an opportunity to come play here. But I was extremely privileged to be able to come and be the first coach here. And I jumped at that opportunity when it was thrown my way. And, again, in my youthful mind, we had such success at South Alabama. I thought, well, if we could do it at this directional school and we're beating the bigger schools in the state, I'll just go to one of the bigger schools in the state and things will be easier. But obviously, it's funny. It's, maybe there's a little truth to that, but the difference is you're moving into a bigger conference, and the level of competition is different, and the level of resources are different. All of a sudden we were put into a league in the Big 12 conference where, you've got Texas and Oklahoma with two of the largest budgets in the country in athletics. And, it's just the resources are always something that you realize as a coach. Sometimes those things that you don't know matter, they do matter. And you figure that out along the way. And it's not everything, or else the wealthiest schools would always beat everybody in every sport. But that's not the case, because that's not how sports works. You have to get out there and compete. But in my youthful mind, I thought, we'll go to Oklahoma State, and again, we'll just go there and kill it and win a national championship.
Of course, how is that like coming to your dream school that obviously you said as a player you wanted to play at before they didn't have a program there?
Yeah, for me, I mean, it was funny. I was, again, in my late 20s, and I was just telling anybody who would listen that this was my New York Yankees job, right? I'd finally arrived, and I was the place that I wanted to be. And that's still true, by the way. I'm still working at the university I want to be at. But it, again, just kind of naive and blissfully ignorant, I guess, and just, just thinking that some things would be very easy, and certainly they weren't. And, life gives you knocks along the way that teaches you, things that you need to do better, and maybe things that aren't working, you need to try to change. But, coaching still remains coaching, right? The young people still remain young people. People need to learn, people need guidance, people need support, and those things are at the root no matter where you go and what level you're coaching at, whether you're talking about high school or college or anywhere.
Of course, can you talk about the culture that you started as head coach to now where you are as the assistant coach for Oklahoma State?
Yeah. Again, I have the great fortune of still working with the same person I've been working with we're in our 27th year now. And 2 years before that, we were at South Alabama. So I've been working with the same person for nearly 30 years. So we know each other quite well. We understand what we want our culture to be about. And it's just taken some time, to figure out, how we get there. Our first 5 years here at Oklahoma State, we probably didn't have the best academic record, but we learned that, we could be a good program and have very good students in the program if we just set our expectation levels a little differently. And ever since, early 2000s, we've been getting a team academic award for having a team GPA of over 3.0. So that's like a standard. That's a minimum standard to be in this program, that you're going to excel in class. And then, that also, there's that expectation on the field as well. We expect to compete for championships here, conference championships, certainly. And, again, I've just found as a coach that if you set expectation levels at a low level, well, your players will meet that and you'll achieve at a low level. If you set the expectations at a high level, a lot of times your players will pretty much knock themselves out trying to reach them and meet them.
Of course, what was the 2006 season like going to the NCAA tournament for the first time in program history?
We actually went to the NCAA tournament the first time in 2003. So 2006 was our second time. In 2003, that was the first time we went. We were the 7th seed going to the Big 12 tournament out of 8 teams, and we upset higher seeded teams, the 2 and 3 seeded teams, to get to the championship game, where ironically we met up with the 8 seed that year, which was Missouri that year. And so it was a battle between the 7th and the 8th seeds, and we won that game. So we got the automatic qualifier to go to the NCAA tournament. That was our first time ever into the NCAA tournament. And we went down to Auburn, played a first round game there and lost that game 1-0 in a game where, we probably were still starstruck and eyes wide because we got scored on in about the first 5 minutes, and then that score held 1-0. So we just didn't know a thing about what the NCAA tournament was like, and it was something that we loved. We finally got a taste of it, and it's like, oh yeah, we want more of that. And it took us another 3 years to get back, but we got back in 2006, and we've really been back most years since. So that's been a lot of fun.
Of course, can you talk about who are some of the teams that you faced in the Big Ten?
Big 12. We compete in the Big 12, but I think that's what you mean, right? Or the Big 10, because we have played some non-conference games against Big 10.
In the Big 12.
Big 12, yeah. Very competitive, right? It's a very competitive league. Originally Texas A&M, Nebraska were in our league, and they were awfully good. Colorado's in our league, they were awfully good, and A&M probably wore the crown more often than not for our league at that time. And then when they moved out in 2012 and West Virginia came in, West Virginia, went on a stretch where they won the league for maybe 4 years in a row. But, we've regained some form. We won a championship in 2017 and again in 2019. And, we were runner up here last year or so, last couple of years. And, right now we're in the top 3 of the standings, and, we're in a position where at least we're fighting for another championship this year. But everybody's good. Texas very strong this year. TCU has been very, very strong the last few years. And in our league, we kind of feel like if you're the best in the league, you're going to be considered amongst the best in the country. Every year our best teams in the league are usually top 4, top 8 in the country. So, you always figure if you're vying for a conference championship in the Big 12, you're probably pretty close to vying for a national championship.
Of course, what is it like coaching against those teams like Oklahoma, who is your in-state rival, versus obviously Texas?
So playing against OU in any sport here at Oklahoma State, it's called the Bedlam rivalry. It's the Bedlam matchup. And, there's actually a traveling trophy associated with it, and there's in-state bragging rights. And it is almost always our highest attended game on both sides. Like, we go down to Oklahoma, it's their biggest crowd. We just went there last Thursday, as a matter of fact, and they set an attendance record, all-time attendance record. And our highest attendance record is also when we hosted them a few years ago. Our attendance record being like 4,200 in our stands, and our place only seats 2,500, so you can imagine quite the sight of 1,700 people in standing room only. But it's fun to have that rival like that. Players get super hyped up, extremely competitive game, gets chippy at times, but it's just it's the funness of having a rivalry. And I've been at other schools where you didn't have a true rival like that, and it is more fun to have a rival.
Of course, what does the game day atmosphere look like for you as a head coach? For you as a coach versus obviously for your players?
So, I prefer playing the game earlier in the day as opposed to later in the day because you don't have to sit around waiting for the game to come. So I actually like 1 o'clock kickoffs because of that. I don't think it's great for fans. I think 7 p.m. kickoffs are better for fans, but from a waiting around perspective, I think players probably as well as coaches would rather get it over with and play earlier. When you have to wait all day, it's a lot of waiting to get to that point. But the games here are a lot of fun. We have good fan support, and our facility is arguably the best in the country, and we feed off the energy of the crowd. Our home record here is very strong. We don't lose many games here, and just love competing here.
What does the recruitment process look like for those prospective student athletes looking to play college soccer?
Well, it's they got to try to get seen, right, and find out if there's interest from a college coach. Players have to invite coaches to games, have to make those schedules readily available, keeps coaches up to date on any schedule changes, and just persistence of reaching out to a coach. Coaches will eventually let players know if they're interested or not. But I think prospective student athletes need to understand that coaches get hit with literally hundreds of emails, contacts every week, and you just need to stay at it. If you have a goal in mind of trying to play somewhere, just try to get that coach on the phone and find out realistically where what your chances are, and then move on from there. I'm a big believer in there's a place for everyone to play if you love to play. Some people get to go to their top choice, their ideal school, and some people may go to their second choice, but sometimes that's a blessing in disguise, and players don't know that until they go do it.
Of course, what are some things that you look at as a coach when out on the road recruiting?
Well, obviously, talent, and there's kind of 4 areas you're looking for always. Obviously your physical athletic ability, right? Are you stronger than everybody else? Are you faster than everybody else? So that kind of thing, quicker than everybody else. But beyond that, your technical ability, your skills, what you can do with the ball, what you can do with the ball quickly or in tight spaces, that kind of thing. Tactically, are you a player that understands the flow of the game and how to play soccer and what you're looking for? And then beyond that, maybe the hardest thing to gauge is the psychological component. Like, are you a competitor, like to the core, to the bone? Like, would you run over your grandmother trying to, make a play to help your team win? That sounds very, very dramatic, but, that's what I'm, just you're looking for those players who are ultra competitive, because sometimes when you have that quality, it really, it can make up for one of the other 3 I've talked about a little bit. Because if you have that, it can carry you a long way. If you just love to compete, if you love playing so much, you almost always improve. You are on a trajectory to continue to improve if you just love playing, because you'll put in the time and the effort if you love playing that much.
What does the official visit look like for those prospective student athletes coming to Oklahoma State?
Once you're here, it depends on what time of year we have you here. If it's early in the season, we'll just, before games, we'll just show you around our facilities and talk to you a bunch about what our goals are here and how we see you fit in. If it's a little bit later in the season, once football games have started, we love taking recruits to a football game if we can, because we have one of the best game day environments in football that you'll see. We have the privilege of taking them out onto the field to where they can watch the warm up in person. And then we watch the game, and that's a lot of fun, along with the tailgating that goes on beforehand and things like that. If it's later in the year, maybe we take you to a basketball game, or a baseball game or a softball game, depending on, how late in the year it is. And, we just want to show you what Oklahoma State athletics is all about. Not only just the soccer program, but what it's like for the other student athletes here, because it is kind of like one big happy family when it comes to our student athletes. And we just really want the players, the prospects, to get a feel for what we have here, that you'll get some big time athletics in a small town community feel. And it's a pretty cool combination.
Of course, as a coach, what is it like seeing them get to put on that orange cowgirl soccer jersey?
Well, I think it's a pretty cool thing, when they get to put on that jersey for the first time for a game, maybe to be in the starting lineup for the first time or to get a goal, a first career goal or something like that. And, with today's digital age, you get so many photos and, videos and things are put out on, social media sites. There's so much content. I just think, those are things that, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, student athletes didn't have. But what a collection of memories these student athletes get to have because of technology. And, they make for great pictures. I mean, for the rest of your life. I mean, it's a cool thing to be a collegiate athlete at the university and be able to put that jersey on. It's not something I ever got to do here, right? I just get to put on coaching gear, but I have to imagine it's pretty special for the players.
What advice would you give those high school athletes looking to play college soccer?
Keep working hard, right? Keep working hard. Hard work gets noticed a lot of times. And if you have particular places you're trying to go, just make sure that you're reaching out to those schools and trying hard to get the coach's attention and get their heads turned. And if you can't, I would say just continue to shop yourself out to, multiple programs. Go to camps. Go to camps where you're going to get seen by multiple coaches because, again, I said this earlier, there's a place, I believe, for everyone to play. And sometimes people don't know about the hidden gems, the hidden programs, that can be great fits for people unless they really go out and keep their eyes open and their ears open and listen and look.
What advice would you give those college athletes looking to play professionally, whether it's the NWSL or on the U.S. national team?
Well, again, hard work, right? You can't get there without hard work. Obviously, you have to have talent, right? But everybody at that level works their socks off. I mean, unbelievable work ethics. They take it super seriously. They devote lots and lots and lots and lots of time and repetitions to getting better. It really, has to become kind of all-consuming in many ways for a lot of them. But if that's your goal, that's what you have to work at, right? You have to understand that that's a profession you're pursuing. So you just have to go for it full bore, 100%.
What advice would you give those future college coaches looking to get started and even coaches that are looking to coach at their dream school like you are?
Again, you just have to make yourself available and understand that I don't know a coach out there who doesn't start out working for free. I mean, really, you go take jobs for free or you go take jobs where you're literally making tiny, tiny amounts of money. That was certainly the case for me. And I know it was for a lot of my colleagues. You do anything to get your foot in the door and get some work experience and know that you're just going to be living like a peasant for maybe a long time. But if it's what you love to do, it doesn't feel like work. And that's the beauty of it. And so as long as you don't, you live very, very modestly, you can probably make it work.
That's great advice. Where can my listeners find you at on social media along with the Oklahoma State Cowgirls soccer program at?
Say that again?
Where can my listeners find the soccer program at and you at on social media?
Oh, I'm not very good at knowing what my Twitter handles are or my Instagram, but I do have a Twitter and I do have an Instagram. I think I'm Karen Hancock 18 on Twitter. And on Instagram, I think maybe I'm OSU_Karen Hancock, maybe. Not too difficult to find. Obviously, I'm not difficult to find on the Oklahoma State website, which is okstate.com. And I don't have Facebook. I'm not real big in the other social media channels, but I do have the two.
Thank you again, Coach Karen Hancock, for your interview and best of luck in your future at Oklahoma State as the assistant women's soccer coach.
Thank you, Brandon.
You can find Brandon Sports Talk on Facebook at Brandon Sports Talk, Instagram at Brandon Sports Talk, Twitter at Talk_Brandon, and you can find me on YouTube at Brandon Sports Talk. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you again, Coach Karen Hancock, for your interview and best of luck in your future.
Thank you, Brandon.
You've been watching Brandon Sports Talk. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe to Brandon Sports Talk on social media and on YouTube.